During the summer break, after months of troubled studies at Nevermore Academy, Wednesday, Addams, finds herself tied up in a criminal's basement surrounded by dozens of sinister dolls. 6 weeks earlier, since returning home, the young woman had devoted all her time to learning how to master her psychic ability in depth. All the answers she was looking for were available in Goody's spellbook. And after gaining control of her abilities, Wednesday turned her attention to an obsession she had had since the age of 6. The criminal she most admired when she was younger was the Kansas City Scalper, and in order to locate him psychically, all she needed was an object from one of his crime scenes. The criminal's 11th victim was carrying his bowling ball when he was captured, and through it, Wednesday discovers the location of the Scalper. The next day, she buys a plane ticket to reach him, but when she goes through the metal detector, the girl is stopped by the security guards. After being searched, Wednesday is forced to give up all the weapons she was carrying hidden in her clothes, and is then released to continue her journey. When she finally finds the criminal, the girl tries to use a taser to knock him out, but ends up being captured. As soon as the man grabs her arm, Wednesday has a vision and faints. When she wakes up, she finds herself tied up in the basement of the Scalper's house and is about to become another one of his victims. As she approaches, the criminal shows her the doll he made in honor of the girl and says that it will be the newest item in his collection, so he can remember all his victims. However, before the criminal can even begin his diabolical work, Thing comes out of one of the dolls and attacks him. While her best friend immobilizes the Scalper, Wednesday manages to free himself from his bonds and uses his enemy's sinister tools against himself. After causing the Scalper the pain he deserves, the young woman hands him over to the police and returns home to enjoy her last days of vacation. On the way to Nevermore Academy, Wednesday discovers that her brother has learned to shoot lightning from his hands and challenges him to destroy a plaque with his new powers. Seconds after the sign is destroyed, an accident happens at the crossroads, and the Addams family continue on their way as if nothing had happened. That afternoon, while photographing a woman on a romantic date with her secret partner, a private detective is surrounded by a flock of scary-looking crows. When he notices them, it's too late, as Carl is attacked and has to run back to his vehicle. At this point, he calls someone he trusts and reveals that he has been discovered. Finally, the detective reveals where the evidence can be found if he doesn't survive. At the end of the call, Carl discovers that the crows have managed to break in, and he ends up being eliminated by them. Now that Pugsley has also been transferred to Nevermore, Wednesday tells him the rules of coexistence between her and her brother, and walks towards her room. After saving the school from the demonic pilgrim, Wednesday has become a popular figure, and is surprised to meet Barry Dord, the Academy's new principal.
When she gets to her room and meets Enid again, Wednesday gives her a present she picked up at the Scalper's house and starts unpacking. When she opens the bathroom door, the girls are almost hit by an arrow fired from a crossbow, and Wednesday realizes that she is being watched closely by someone. When she touches the photo that has been thrown at the wall, the girl tries to use her psychic powers to locate the stalker, but is unable to discover his identity. Just then, Enid sees a dark tear dripping from her friend's eye and gets worried, but Wednesday says there's nothing to worry about. After meeting the new principal, Morticia and Gomez are invited to stay for a few days at Rotwood Cottage, where Marilyn Thornhill lived before going to prison. Now that new changes are being made to Nevermore, Barry invites Morticia to be chairman of the Gala Republic's Revenue Committee. Furious at the prospect of having her parents around, Wednesday goes for a walk in the woods and spots some vehicles collecting Carl's body, which was disposed of hours ago. After exchanging a few words with Sheriff Santiago, Wednesday spots a suspicious man trying to flee the scene of the crime and goes after him. After hitting him, Wednesday discovers that Galpin is the hooded man, and he claims to be Carl's friend. According to Galpin, they were both working together on a case, and before he was eliminated, Carl made a discovery that would affect all the outcasts. However, after everything the former sheriff did to protect her son, who was actually a monster, Wednesday knows she can't trust him and decides to leave. Despite having been transferred to the Reichenbach School in Switzerland, Xavier sends Wednesday one last present, which depicts the image of a raven on a tombstone. Even though he doesn't know what the drawing means, Xavier is convinced that it is somehow associated with his friend. At this point, with the help of Thing, Wednesday discovers that the stalker has broken into her room and stolen her manuscript. Convinced that he intends to burn her book on the founder's pyre, the girl rushes to the venue and invades the pyre. While the audience is distracted by a beautiful musical number and the presentation of the new principal, Wednesday searches for the manuscript of her book among the branches, and when she finally manages to find it, the principal lights the pyre. After getting her book, Wednesday tries to find a way out, and seeing her friend in trouble, Enid runs to get help. Just then, the students with telekinesis powers join forces to make the wooden bird fly while it's on fire, and everyone present is impressed by the show.
Wednesday narrowly manages to get out of the fire with her book seconds before she is hit by the flames and climbs onto the stage with the aim of putting an end to her popularity. When she sees the painting that the director used to honor her for saving Nevermore, Wednesday doesn't think twice before setting fire to it and sabotaging the whole event. That night, Pugsley decides to take a walk alone in the forest and ends up falling from the trunk of a tree. When his hands touch the ground, a strong electrical discharge is released and he accidentally brings to life a body that was buried there. Worried about her friend, Enid decides to go after her, and upon being touched, Wednesday has a new vision in which she sees Enid's grave surrounded by crows. When she looks back, Wednesday is attacked by the zombie body of her friend, who claims she lost her life because of her. At that moment, Wednesday's body collapses, and she is rescued by Enid and another woman wearing a red cape. When she wakes up, Wednesday sees her mother, and Morticia reveals that she is worried about her because those tears indicate that her daughter is suffering from psychic exhaustion. However, Wednesday decides to ignore her mother's advice and goes after Galpin to try to find out how to change her friend's fate. After breaking into the house, the girl discovers that the former sheriff has been eliminated and, like Carl, has had his eyes removed. Suddenly, a flock of crows comes out of his mouth and starts flying around in bewilderment until they find a way out. As the birds flee out of the window, Wednesday notices that only one crow has been left behind. And on taking a closer look, she discovers that it is the same crow that appeared in her vision and in Xavier's painting. While touching Galpin's body with the aim of making some useful discovery to save Enid, Wednesday realizes that her powers have stopped working and tries to flee when she sees the police approaching. However, before she can reach the door, Sheriff Santiago appears and Wednesday is taken to prison. While her daughter is being interrogated, Gomez shows up and claims to be her lawyer. He manages to get his daughter back to school and says that if the sheriff wants to talk to Wednesday again, she'll need a warrant. The next morning, Pugsley takes his roommate to the barn where he hid the zombie. Upon seeing the monster, Eugene soon realizes that this is the boy from the skull tree and is surprised to discover that the stories about him are not legends. With his powers, Pugsley has restarted Slurp's mechanical heart and managed to bring him back to life, but asks Eugene to keep it a secret. In an attempt to find out who is behind the crow attack, Wednesday goes to talk to Barry and Dr. Oroff to find out if there are any students at that school capable of controlling birds. However, the talking head states that the last Avon enrolled at Nevermore graduated 10 years ago, and Wednesday begins to wonder who this person might be. While she doesn't have this answer, the girl decides to go to Willow Hill Psychiatric Hospital to pay Tyler a visit and is greeted by Dr. Fairburn. The psychiatrist reveals that her traditional methods aren't working, So she allows Wednesday to pay Hyde a visit in the hope that it will cause a reaction in him. Seeing Tyler again after so long, Wednesday tries to remain apathetic even though she is furious inside. When he finds out that his father has perished, the boy shows no sadness and refuses to cooperate with the girl in finding the culprit. During the conversation, Tyler begins his transformation, but is interrupted by the security guard, who uses a shock collar to contain his powers. Meanwhile, in the middle of science class, Pugsley gets a visit from Eugene and discovers that Slurp has escaped from the barn. Later, when she gets to her room, Wednesday finds Hyde locked inside the trunk, and after freeing him, discovers that Enid has been captured. Just then, the girl receives a call from her stalker, who tells her that she only has 30 minutes to find her friend, otherwise she'll never see her again. Upon waking up, Enid and Bruno realize that they are chained to the top of the Iago Tower and look up to see hundreds of blades about to fall on their heads. After receiving a clue as to where Enid has been imprisoned, Wednesday goes to the music room and plays the notes indicated on the card. As she does so, a secret passage opens, and the girl enters an elevator to reach the top of the tower. When she finally finds her friend, Wednesday asks Thing to free them, but the creature ends up falling into a trap and is trapped by a blade. At that moment, the trap is triggered and the cluster of blades begins to descend slowly. However, after solving the riddle created by the stalker, Wednesday manages to save her friend and the platform rises again. After freeing Thing, the girl hears some applause and suddenly Agnes appears. At this moment, Wednesday discovers that her stalker is a 13-year-old teenager with invisibility powers, and is surprised to discover that Agnes did it all just to get her attention. At this point, Wednesday begins to suspect that Agnes is involved in the attack on Galpin, but the girl claims to have no involvement in the case. Her main goal was to become friends with Wednesday, and to do so, she had to prove herself to be as intelligent and shrewd as she was. That rainy night, a driver is crossing the Nevermore forest when suddenly he hits someone. Concerned about the victim, Gabe gets out of the car to check that the person is okay, and is surprised to notice that the body has disappeared. Looking back, Gabe comes across the monstrous zombie and ends up being eaten alive. When she discovers that her mother has broken into her room and taken Goody's spellbook, Wednesday decides to break into the Rotwood cabin to look for it and ends up being caught red-handed. In an attempt to convince her mother to give it back, the young girl reveals details about her last vision and says that she will be responsible for eliminating Enid. According to her, Galpin and Carl were eliminated by the one-eyed crow that appeared in her vision. So Wednesday is convinced that there is someone behind all this coordinating the attacks. However, even after hearing this story, Morticia refuses to hand over the book because she says that if she continues to use her powers in this way, Wednesday will end up succumbing to madness like her Aunt Ophelia. The next morning, while feeding his pet monster, Pugsley reveals that Slurp has been found in the barn that morning. When he discovers that the zombie has returned to school alone, Eugene wonders what he's been up to while he's been away, and observes that the creature is recovering. Little by little, its zombified body is gaining new tissue, and even its brain is regenerating as the monster feeds. Worried about what might happen if Slurp escapes again, Eugene insists that they inform someone of the zombie's existence, but Pugsley assures him that he won't be able to break free from his chains again. With Agnes's help, Wednesday manages to unlock Galpin's phone and finds the voice message left by Carl. In the recording, the man reveals that the evidence for the case they were both investigating is hidden in the cabin, but the girl doesn't know where this place is. However, By looking through some photos that were found in Galpin's house, Wednesday discovers the address of the hiding place and decides to join Enid and other students on a camping trip to get there. After arriving at the campsite, Wednesday sees her brother carrying a coffin and begins to suspect that he is hiding something, but her attention is soon stolen by the sudden arrival of her parents. When he arrives at the tent and discovers that Pugsley has brought his Slurp to the camp, Eugene says it was a bad idea, but his roommate decides that he has set up an alert system to warn them if a zombie manages to escape. While the director is announcing the rules of the camp, Ron Kruger appears with his cadets and reveals that he booked that camp 6 months ago. At this point, Barry shows him his signed contract, and they both discover that the owner of the land has rented the site to 2 people on the same weekend to decide who will stay at the campsite. Wednesday proposes a challenge in which the losing team will have to return home without opening their mouths. The challenge consists of stealing the Zephyr from the opposing team and placing it on top of the watchtower. The first group to complete this task will be the winners. While the outcasts are protecting the Zephyr, Bailey and his companions shoot an arrow into the Gorgon's cap, at which point all their allies are turned to stone. Ajax is then captured and Bailey takes the object from the opposing team. Seeing the flare being thrown, Wednesday orders Eugene to send his bees to attack the enemies. And while they are struggling on the ground, the girl invades the cloud of tear gas to steal the Zephyr from the opposing team. When she realizes that Bailey is about to reach the top of the tower,
Wednesday shoots an arrow and slides down the rope to reach the other side. After knocking the boy down with a kick, she places the opposing team's Zephyr at the top of the tower and wins the competition. At dusk, all the students gather around a bonfire except for Wednesday, who follows the map to get to Gallen's cabin. While rummaging around, she finds a list of obituaries of people who perished years ago, and all of whom were patients at Willow Hill. Once again, Wednesday tries to use her ability to find out who Lewis is, but she can't access her psychic powers, so she decides to take the evidence. Realizing that her mother won't hand over Goody's book so easily, Wednesday challenges her to a blind duel, and Morticia accepts the challenge. Not satisfied with their defeat, Ron Kruger and his cadets set up an ambush to expel the outcasts from the camp, but end up falling into the trap that Pugsley has built for Slurp. While the fires are being set off, Ron is devoured by the zombie and his cadets flee in terror after seeing this sinister scene. At that moment, mother and daughter go into the forest and prepare to start their sword duel. If she succeeds in destroying her mother's heart of glass, Wednesday will get her book back. But if she is defeated, Morticia will burn it. When he arrives at his hut and discovers that Slurp has devoured Ron's brain, Eugene despairs, but helps Pugsley to search for him in the forest together with Agnes, who is excited to be involved in a crime scene. While taking a bath, Gomez is surprised by the arrival of Slurp, who tries to eliminate him with his axe. Just then, Pugsley appears and attacks the zombie. Attracted by the noise, Barry and the students run to the bathroom and decide to flee when they encounter the monster. After a long battle, Morticia finally manages to destroy her daughter's crystal heart. Frustrated, Wednesday removes her blindfold and realizes that her mother is about to be attacked. Immediately, the young woman throws her sword at the zombie's skull and manages to stop it before Morticia is injured. Minutes later, the police show up to capture Slurp and take him away from the people so that he can't hurt anyone else. While Captain Kruger's body is being taken away, Wednesday realizes that she is being watched by the one-eyed crow, who flies up to its master's shoulder. However, before the girl has a chance to unmask the monster behind those attacks, he disappears right before her eyes. The next morning, Thornhole arrives at the Willow Hill Psychiatric Hospital and is taken to Dr. Fairburn's room for questioning. The aim is to find out what Thornhole did to Tyler, because only then will she be able to unlock his mind. However, the woman refuses to cooperate. So Fairburn orders the guard to transfer Thornhill back to the state prison, where she will remain in solitary confinement until her trial. Before leaving, she begs to see Tyler in person for the last time, and the doctor escorts her to her cell. However, on seeing the woman who made him do terrible things, Tyler turns into the monster and attacks Thornhill. Furious, he throws his former master against the wall. And even after almost losing her life, Thornhill is happy to see him again. After receiving a call from her granddaughter, Hester Frump shows up in Nevermore to talk to her in person, and Wednesday is delighted to see her again. As they breathe in the scent of Patricia Redcar's ashes, the one-eyed crow appears and steals the obituaries, so Wednesday goes after him. On her way out of the cemetery, she sees the same hooded aviary who appeared at the camp, but she can't catch up with him. Realizing that she won't be able to solve the case on her own, Wednesday asks her Uncle Fester for help and discovers that Eolia has already been interned there. Fester's goal will be to find a woman called Lewis, who could be a doctor or a patient. After getting into some trouble at the hotel where he's staying, Fester is admitted straight to the psychiatric hospital, where he undergoes all kinds of treatment. During the school break, while in the courtyard within it, Wednesday sees a flock of crows gathering and realizes that an attack is about to begin. As the students try to hide, the principal appears and uses his firepower to drive away the birds. At this point, Thing ends up being captured, but manages to free himself after Barry throws a fireball at the crow that captured him. Luckily, Enid manages to save Thing during the fall, and Wednesday goes after the aviary who is hiding in the school corridors. However, during the chase, the criminal manages to escape, and on meeting Dr. Fairburn, the girl begins to suspect that the doctor is behind the attacks. However, Fairburn reveals that she has business with Isadora Capri, the school's new music teacher, and claims that this is the reason for her visit. After discovering that her newest patient is Wednesday's uncle, the doctor decides to capture him and keep him locked up in a cell with Slurp. When he finds out that Fester is in trouble, Thing returns to Nevermore to inform Wednesday, and the girl enlists Agnes' help to rescue her uncle. After freeing him, Wednesday leaves the cell and leaves the door open, allowing Slurp to escape and attack the guards. Seeing the guards being devoured, Thornhill tries to escape and ends up getting caught by Wednesday. While Isadora is giving her musical performance, an alarm is triggered and Dr. Fairburn discovers that the zombie is on the loose. During the escape, Wednesday and her uncle find a secret passage and discover that Lewis is not a person, but a research project carried out with outcasts. On opening the cells, the girl realizes that all the people described in the obituaries found in Gallen's hut are actually alive. They were captured to serve as guinea pigs in the research funded by the Lewis Project and are being kept as living experiments. Just then, the aviary appears, and Wednesday discovers that her enemy is actually a woman. Judy is Augustus Stonehurst's daughter, and Wednesday met her as Fairburn's secretary, but it was actually Fairburn who hired the doctor to continue her father's work. According to Judy, Augustus loved the outcasts so much that he wanted to become one of them, and so he gathered all those people together to try to steal their skills. Although he didn't succeed in his goal, Augustus was able to give his daughter powers, and thanks to him, Judy became able to control the birds. At that moment, Fester uses his powers to interrupt all the electricity in the hospital, and the doors to the cells of the outcasts open. Seeing the asylum being taken over by the patients, Thornhill finds the perfect opportunity to escape, but before she leaves, she decides to go after Tyler. At that moment, the boy turns into a hide, and Thornhill decides to flee, realizing that she no longer has any power over him. However, during her escape, Tyler manages to catch up with her and attacks his master with his claws. While trying to hide with Augustus, Dr. Fairburn is devoured by Slurp, and the old man becomes the next victim. On the way to the exit, Wednesday comes across Hyde and finds herself face to face with him with no chance of escape. At that moment, the girl is thrown out of the window, and the police appear soon after. When he realizes that he won't be able to eliminate all those armed officers, Tyler decides to flee into the forest, and Wednesday is taken to hospital. So, what did you think of this series? Leave it in the comments below. And if you like the video, like and subscribe for more series recaps. See you next time.